Hello, everybody. This is the Marian Homeschool Assistance Program Student Council Mental Health Podcast. We have not and will never get a title, but I hope you like that title. We're here today to talk about an issue that's important. We're going to be discussing things related to body image and eating disorders, which is kind of a touchy topic. I have with me Sophia and Gracelyn and Olivia, and we're just going to kind of dive into an issue that really, I think has been influenced by the culture in ways that's hard to pin down, but we know that entertainment industry, social media, those kinds of things have impacted the ways people look at themselves physically and what they do about that. So we were kind of talking beforehand. I've read all kinds of information that would indicate that a lot of people, and let's just acknowledge we have all girls on our panel today, that while boys deal with this issue also, it's one that seems to be more associated with girls. And I've read all sorts of information, and I certainly have experienced myself in the schools I've worked in, that there are a lot of girls at very young ages that are on diets. They're they're very concerned about the way they look, and are really kind of struggling with a sense of self-acceptance for the body that they were born into. And so maybe we'll just dive in, and I'll ask you guys, we're just going to open it up, and you guys can talk any way you want to. Where do you see this in your peers? And let's just talk about the girls right now. Where do you see this playing out in your peers? Like how many people you know kind of struggle with this, and how do you see people dealing with it?
I'll just go ahead and give a personal example. I think I really struggle with it a lot in middle school. So I would go on a pescatarian diet or random things because I was really concerned with how I looked or how my body looked. And I think it got to the point where before I would go anywhere, I wouldn't eat just because I was nervous, and that became a way to cope almost. So that was I really struggled with that, especially in, I think, 7th grade. So.
What kind of diet?
It's pescatarian, so it's where you don't eat meat, but you do eat fish.
Got it. Okay.
So I got teased a lot because people were like, "Oh, fish aren't cute enough."
Oh my gosh.
But that wasn't why. I told everyone it was because it's healthier, but really I was just insecure of how I looked. So, yeah.
Cool.
I think that something that plays out a lot in my circle is just that a lot of my friends are conventionally very skinny, and whenever we gain so much as 2 or even 3 pounds, we're like, oh my gosh, we're fat. Oh my gosh. And it's absolutely ridiculous. It's complete hyperbole, but it's sort of a hallmark of a larger issue with just a small margin of gaining weight. We're like, oh my gosh, we have to dial it back a little bit because we don't want it to build upon itself and we're going to get fat. And I just think that we're just so afraid of getting quote unquote fat that it's it's such a focus, such a thing that it really shouldn't be.
Yeah. When people get sort of upset, I've heard that, right? I mean, it's not like I hang out with girls, but I've heard girls talking about, oh, I'm just getting so fat. And I'm like, I don't think you are. I've seen big people, and you're not one of them. It is something that's in our culture. How is that when people, they kind of joke about it, right? But what's going on inside of a person when you're joking about it, but when you get home and you're alone, and what's going on inside a person's head?
I think for a lot of people, including myself, I can use humor as a defense mechanism, or as I just joke about things that bother me. And, I think a lot of people can do that. And, so while that's, something that a lot of people joke about, oh, I'm just getting fat, how funny, even though they're not, it's just something that is sad to hear people joke about because it's typically not true in any shape or form, and it's just sad to hear people joke about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think it puts pressure on people when people are joking about it. Most people are internalizing some of that when it's a sensitive issue. Mm-hmm. So I think body image is a sensitive issue.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that people then think, oh, what about me? You talked about Olivia, you talked about it kind of starts in junior high school, in middle school, which is absolutely, I mean, we're a mess. And, 12, 13, 14 years old, we're a mess, right? Because we're going through so many physiological, neurological change. Everything's changing. And it's all like, woo, what's going on? How does it change? Like from normal junior high, what the heck is happening to my body? To, okay, I'm in high school now. I know the answer of what's happening to my body. How does it change as you move into your later teen years?
So this is, again, a personal thing, but I think, like, as I've grown into high school, like, I've stopped finding my identity in, like, how my body looks and, how much I weigh, because I just realized that, like, worrying about how I physically look takes away from, like, how I can be connecting with other people, or how I can be, like, spreading the gospel, or, like, that's just, like, focusing on, like, it's really just self-centered to worry about how my body looks all the time, so.
It's a distraction. It's a farce to keep people so focused on something so superficial that, exactly like Olivia said, we're not contributing to the things that actually do make us who we are. And when our attention is diverted to things that are purely distractions, we can't develop and grow in our identity in Christ. And that's, call it what you want, but I would say that that's the work of someone who doesn't want us to be closer to Christ, someone who doesn't want us to develop our identity in Christ, because then that doesn't lead other souls to Christ. So, yeah.
Okay, really, really kind of an interesting thing, saying that it's self-centered, right? Because we're all self-absorbed. I'm curious if you know of any stories where it's ever worked, where somebody focusing on their physical appearance ended up with them feeling better about themselves. Or is your experience kind of like the more you focus on it, then the more it consumes you and actually becomes not just a distraction, but a negative? Is that am I hearing that right?
I would agree with that. I'd say it's definitely the latter. You'll never be happy if you focus on something that is ever changing, that is never going to be perfect. If you focus on that, then just logically you're never going to be happy. Right. It's just how that works. So because
you can never get it. You can
right.
never get there.
Right, you're always chasing something that you're just simply not going to be able to have.
Sure. And you'll always find the flaws. When you're seeking perfection, you'll always find the flaws.
Right.
And you'll be your own worst critic, in all likelihood. As it turns out, nobody notices us as much as we notice ourselves.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Nobody's paying any attention to all the stuff we think that people are noticing. Okay, that's really good. Sometimes, because I think that dealing with body image and body perceptions and who we are, I think that's universal. I think 100% of people are thinking about that, wondering about it. It is a part of being human, but especially as an adolescent with a lot of changes, and you're getting an adult brain instead of a little kid brain, a lot of things going on. Sometimes it turns a corner and becomes I would say it becomes a disorder. Okay, so then we get into eating disorders, where it's not just, gosh, I'm over-focused on diet or over-focused on my appearance. Now, instead of me trying to do something, that something has now consumed me, and it now controls me. What are your guys' experiences with that among your peers? And I'm not asking for personal sharing, but what are your guys' experiences? How do you see that playing out with real, legitimate eating disorders?
I have one friend specifically who, she weighs, much less than I do. And she doesn't think I'm fat, but she thinks she's fat. And to see that, makes me sad. And something I try to remind her is a quote, I'm paraphrasing here, but being pretty is not something you owe the world. So many girls just want to be very beautiful, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's great, to be beautiful, but being alive is not about being beautiful. And, that should not be your goal in life. And so you don't owe anyone, you don't have to be pretty. Not everyone is born conventionally attractive. That's the way it is. And that's fine. You know, I have met so many people who maybe aren't conventionally attractive, very beautiful in their own way, but have much better personalities who I would much rather be around than people who are very conventionally attractive, you know, who look like models, but, you know, they're just nasty people.
So developing a personality is much more important than developing an illusion. You can never hold on to it, right? Like, I mean, you're not going to be 16 forever, right? You're not going to be 20 forever. You can hold on to this. Well, you can pretty much hold on to it until you're about 30, as long as you don't have kids. Okay, I'm just saying, like, things change. Like, it all changes. It's an elusive and unattainable goal. Mm-hmm. All right. Have you guys, that's a good example of an eating disorder. What have you guys, like, how do you guys help your friends protect yourselves from getting into that? Because once it gets you, it changes the way you think. Mm-hmm. You're no longer thinking rationally. I mean, you could see the picture. You could stand on the scale right next to each other in the case of your friend, and it doesn't matter. The logic and facts no longer. So how do you guys help yourselves? How do you help each other?
So I think that just a really good reminder is, this is kind of abstract, but one of the most basic tenets of good business is solving a problem. And in order to solve a problem, there has to be a problem there to begin with. And we know that the advertising companies and lots of big companies such as cosmetic companies, clothing companies, pretty much any, you know, like adornment company, you know, adorn your body with whatever it is, they have to make money, and they do make money. They make billions of dollars every single year. And they have to be solving a problem in order to make that much money. And they also have to be making the problem in order to make that much money. And all of the advertising and all of their marketing campaigns inadvertently create the problem. And it literally is sowing seeds in young girls' minds that you are fat. If you are gaining 2 or 3 pounds, probably should cut it down and buy this little waist trainer to make sure you're not, you know. And I know that's probably a pretty like weird example.
Great. That's really
but
good.
That's exactly how that works. And it's brainwashing, really, is what it is. Mm-hmm. And we don't realize it. It's very subliminal. Excuse me, it's not subliminal. Subliminal. Is
there
that
you
what
go.
it's called? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So yeah, I would just say, just reminding yourself that you're not actually fat. You're not. You're just being made to believe that you are XYZ. You're made to believe that you're fat, that you're not pretty, that you're not worth it because you're fat and not pretty. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, kind of talk a little bit more about that, all of you. But following up on what Sophie said about advertising, the images that are presented in media and even social media, which, you know, is very much a comparison focused thing. It's kind of like, look at me. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can't look at it. Like, some of the times I just gotta go, I can't look at this stuff. How does that impact people, and what do you do to help yourselves and protect your friends?
Yeah, I think something that's pretty common is you will see advertisements and you will compare yourself to them, but you're also like, everyone else is seeing these advertisements and everyone else is seeing me. So do they not think I live up to this standard? But it's like, if your friends are like determining your worth based on how you look, like, what kind of a friendship even is it? Like, that's not like the values that really matter in the end. So,
and let's just touch on the other thing, not just your friends, but the attention you get from boys. How does that enter into this? Because, I mean, that's what's happening. It's what's supposed to happen. It's normal. It's natural. How does that impact people in your groups?
So I think there are a lot of different reasons for this, but I would say that generally, just again, due to advertising and lots of different things, boys will expect you to look like Kylie Jenner, like 14, and it is completely and utterly unattainable for these 14-year-olds to be walking around looking like one of the Kardashians or like a runway model. It's like, that'd be ridiculous. Yeah. No one would want to see that. Right. I mean, it's not attainable. But when that standard is set, and when boys will just hypothetically, let's say, reject someone based on their looks, then you're forced to be like, reevaluate yourself. Like, oh, well, if I went to the gym more and I tried to, work out certain muscles to make it look more XYZ, then, you're forced to like to play into that almost. You're forced to, because that's the standard, so.
Our engineer is telling us that we're running out of time here. And I feel like, oh my gosh, we're just getting started here. This is so good. And maybe we can do a follow-up with this. My last question to you guys is, what we're not saying is whatever, never care. Like there is a reason to show up looking in a way that's comfortable for you. Can you describe in your cases, what is that healthy balance and how do you achieve it?
To me, it completely depends on the day. Like some days I wear no makeup. Today, like I don't have any face makeup on. I'm just wearing mascara, which if you're a guy, it's just something you put on your eyelashes to make them look longer. But yeah, and some days I wear, more. Like if I have a special occasion, typically I wear, more. It really depends, but I'm comfortable not wearing things on my face, and I like how my face looks both ways, and it's more so like a creative thing. It's more so a, to me, like that's my goal, is that it is creative, it is like art, and I always want to view it that way and not as something that I need.
That's good. Either of you want to comment on the healthy balance, how you still care without caring too much?
Yeah, I definitely agree with the kind of creative side. It used to be like I always have to wear makeup, and now it's just like a fun thing, like if I want to. Back on the food topic, I will say something that I've reminded myself is like I've always like been worried about like the quality of food. Like there's so much chemicals in this, like it's not good for me, for my health or for my looks, If you're struggling with eating, maybe not to the level of a disorder, but if you're just struggling with it, like it is always it's always healthier to eat mediocre food than it is to not eat. So.
Wow, that's quality.
Really good.
That's quality, yeah. Any closing thoughts?
I would just second what you both said. I think that a lot of people will affirm themselves when they're wearing makeup or when they think that they look really pretty. And they're like, oh my gosh, like I have to wear makeup because I just look so pretty, when I do that. I think it's important to affirm yourself when you maybe don't think you look pretty. When you walk into the mirror, you're like, ooh, jump scare. Like, that's like, it's not, you should, instead of, that immediate reaction, you'd be like, wow, you do look really pretty today. Like, actually, like, say that to yourself in the mirror, because if you're using your voice box to say that, it's going into your ears, and it's, you're hearing it from somebody other than just, other people who may be like, oh, you look pretty today, or, like you're reinforcing, like, I look pretty even though I'm not wearing makeup. I look pretty in my pajamas. I look pretty when my hair's greasy. Just like really reinforcing the fact that like you don't necessarily look pretty when you have makeup on. You look pretty when you don't have makeup on, because that's when your self shines through.
Yeah.
So
good.
Something I have heard of in the past, and I do a variation on this, is to print out a picture of your little self and put it on your bathroom mirror. When, you're like 5 years old, 7 years old, something like that, and every time you want to talk bad about yourself and you look in the mirror, you look at her and you're saying, when I talk bad about myself, I'm talking bad about her, and I don't want to do that. And so for me, so I have my phone background rotate through a lot of photos, and I put a lot of photos of my little self in there so that I can look at her and think, what am I saying about myself? What am I saying about her?
Wow. Okay, we have to stop. Okay, we do, because we try to keep these under 20 minutes, and we're like at 28 or something. I don't know. This is so good. And we'll definitely have to continue this kind of conversation in the future. I guess the thing I want to say, just to kind of close, as the psychologist on the panel, is that body image problems turn into eating disorders, and food eating problems, even the other side, because we don't really talk about overeating as a comfort, and sort of developing a weight problem and things like bulimia, where you eat and purge, all those we didn't talk about that. They become a problem when you have things inside that you think about yourself that you don't share with somebody else. And so if you're listening to this, boy or girl, it doesn't matter, and you're struggling with some internal conversation about how you look, how you feel about yourself by the way you look, what people have said to you, and you've never talked to anybody about that, take some courage. Find somebody, a friend, an adult that you care about. If you don't feel like you can talk to your parents, maybe someone you know from school, from a church, from maybe a coach, whatever. But get it out of the inside, because when you bring it out, it loses some of its power. And that could be the thing that could keep you from struggling with body image and going all the way to having an eating disorder. Well, this has been great. You guys, wow, you're amazing. Let's bring this to a close. The Marian Homeschool Assistance Program Student Council podcast. And we look forward to seeing you next time.